This is something that's so crucial to being a successful musician, but rarely do I see people doing it. All right, there's one thing, maybe two things that you could be doing and you should be doing on a regular basis that you could do that would just rocket you past all your friends. I'm talking about doing better at chair tests, competitions, auditions, and just immediately sounding like a more professional musician. This is something that's so crucial to being a successful musician, but rarely do I see people doing it as much as they should be. So before I talk about that, I want to illustrate a couple of points. One, how is it that you can immediately identify a professional musician over, say, a high school musician? How can you tell the difference? They could be playing the same song, they could be using the same notes, the same rhythms, same articulations, same dynamics, and you could still identify the professional musician. Now, a lot of students, my younger students probably, would say, well, they're better. Yes, they are. But what is it that they're doing with the music that a younger player wouldn't be doing? What is that thing? Or what are those things? The second point I want to make, have you ever read a book and you come across a word or a name, and in the book you read it a certain way, and later you hear it in context and you realize that you read it wrong or you were pronouncing it wrong in your head? I did this recently with a book that I was reading, and the name I thought was one thing, and when I saw the movie later, I heard them pronounce it a different way. A young reader might do this when they see the word grocery. They might pronounce it groceries, because they don't know any better. It's the first time they've seen that word, but then hearing people talk, you identify, okay, groceries. The C does a weird thing in the middle. As soon as you hear the word, and you identify the way that word sounds with the way that word looks on paper, immediately, instantly, you recognize your mistake and you fix it. Like forever, you know it's groceries. So here's my point. By reading a book, you can't always know exactly how something is going to be pronounced, except in the context that it's written and through the tradition of people using that word in communication and conversation with each other. It's the same way with music. When you're reading the music on the page, you're not always going to know just by looking at the music how long to hold a note, the appropriate vibrato, the appropriate amount of crescendo, decrescendo, build. You're not going to be able to identify all those things within the music. It's a lot like when an actor gets a script. You have all the words in front of you, and they might even have a little description of how those words are to be said. It might say, this person says this line angrily, and that's all the direction you get. It's up to the actor to put the action and the life into the words. And it's the same way with the musician. A lot of young musicians look at the paper and they see the notes, they see the rhythms, they see the articulations, the dynamics, but there are things that you need to do to the music that aren't on the page. For example, vibrato, note length, the proper way to articulate the front of the note, how to end a note, how to build crescendo, decrescendo, even when it's not written. It could be the natural accent. In jazz, for example, you might emphasize the second and fourth beat, or in classical, you might emphasize the first and the third beat in a particular way. And all these things are unwritten on the music. These are things that you can only identify by listening to a competent musician and emulating what they're doing. And here's another point. I have a lot of students I work with, and when I try to identify each of these tiny little things and inflections that you ought to put into your music, if I play it for them, or if I show them a musical example, and immediately you can just play it that way. And all those tiny little intricate things will be placed in there because you're playing it just like you hear it. And so here's the one thing that you need to do to easily pass all your friends, to be a better musician. It's a very simple thing. It's listen to music. Listen to music every single day. Listen to good examples of professional musicians playing the kind of music that you're trying to learn. If it's a slow piece of music, if you are doing a region etude and you're playing a ballad, listen to a professional musician play a ballad. And then the second part is copy what they're doing. What I mean is, if you hear them playing a long note with vibrato, try to copy the vibrato, copy the articulation, copy every tiny little inflection that you notice, and then take all those inflections, take what you've learned, and put that into your slow piece. Listen and then copy. That's the answer. And with YouTube today, you can find bazillions of good professional musicians and great examples of how to practice, how to perform. By copying a professional musician, you're going to sound like a professional musician. And this is a thing that, I can't believe it, it's very rarely done. As far as the sample of students that I've asked and told to do these things, it seems very, very rare that you have a student who's passionate about listening to music and copying the musicians that they're listening to, emulating those people. It seems like it's a very rare thing, and it takes a little bit of arm twisting to get somebody to actually do it, which is amazing because everybody has a smartphone. It's very, very simple. It's a very easy thing to do. Now, because nobody else does this, if you add this to your practice routine, you're going to blast past everybody else around you, because you're going to sound like the professional musicians that you're trying to copy pretty quickly, pretty rapidly. So if you're doing these things because you're emulating a professional musician, it's going to come across in your playing, you're going to sound more professional, and you're going to do way better at competitions. That's going to come across to the judges. To the judges, who are probably other band directors or people learned in their field, they can hear and identify these things that a younger group of people might not be able to. Try it out.